All right. We're going live here. It's going to be great. I'm so freaking stoked. Oh, goodness. Let's see here. All right. I see a couple folks coming on in. There's plenty of room. What are we all doing? Oh, my goodness. Come on. How you guys doing? Well, it's been Ghost Man. My beard has been waiting like over 2 decades to finally make an appearance. So it's stoked. I'm stoked. Hey, how's it going, fellas? Absolutely a pleasure. So I do have we're gonna let this we're already starting to get quite a few folks coming in here. That's awesome. Um my brother Stone Wolf Outdoors, my man, the myth, the legend. Great to see you. Great to see you. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Man, you guys are looking great. Star Crab, great idea. So I do have a couple notes for some things that I wanted to talk about because too many times I think people make cop outs when it comes to a lot of different things and considerations. And so I want to put a couple ideas out there and a couple thoughts and get some of your feedback going on. Stephen Carter, good to see you, brother. Good evening, Hen Black. And some of this will, I'm sure, I'm working stuff in my head for some future videos. And so just kind of working through and talking about a lot of things, again, that I think that people get wrong. They get wrong about, SHTF in general. They get wrong about, basic survival stuff as it relates to, something that is beyond, a 24 to 72-hour, 96-hour type event, because we approach things through the wrong mindset. Before we get going too much, we'll make a little bit of room here. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's right, rocking my inner Sasquatch. And the good thing is that it holds a little bit of them commie tears for later. So the first thing I got for you guys as we continue to get some more guys coming in is just some false expectations about what SHTF is or looks like. Just take something that's totally chaotic, like a combat zone or war. I think too many people have it in their heads that it's straight Mad Max, once that happens. But I think, if we look back through history and even currently, we can see that in all of these environments where there is, a major military efforts going on within a country, that life continues to happen, right? You still need electricity. There's still electricity still being produced. There is still, some sort of law that's in effect. There's still people going to work. And certainly we saw in our history in the United States, going back a world war or so ago, that, bread lines may be long, things of this nature, but there is still a sense of life. And I think that's something that we forget, that, in the event that, it all goes to hell in a handbasket, it's probably not all really to hell in a handbasket unless we're on Hollywood. Callie, good to see you, brothers. And man, it's so good to have all you guys in here. This is freaking awesome. It's been way too long since I've been live. And of course, I'm in a sense of little disarray and transition. Hopefully be closing on our house next month. So that's going to be awesome. Yeah, it's coming in. It's coming in. Heck yeah. Make sure you get your own. One of the big things I think, let's talk about electricity, right? Electricity. Before that, let's talk about going at it alone or going at it with a group of people, whether that's family and close friends, maybe it's people who live in your same valley. Um, again, something really beyond, we'll call it beyond a 96-hour event. I've had a lot of comments on the channel, folks talking about that they will absolutely not do anything that is, enduring and involve people. I think this is a mistake. And although Tony, who's in the chat, Stone Wolf Outdoors, outstanding dude, can attest that he has gone after some things alone and has done well. I think one of the keys to that he could probably confirm or deny is that the ability to move was instrumental. If you look at it, just the classic TV show alone, right? These dudes don't make it, and they're not just geeks off the street. They have some sort of proficiency before they go in, and then they go through their own little boot camp specifically for the area. But then they get locked into these specific zones, and they can't move about, right? And so what you're left with is a lot of limited resources, and or just the resources that you have there available to you in that place and time. And if you can't move, you're not going to make it. And so even if you can move at some point in time, whether it's a medical injury, whether it's just a deficiency in your calorie intake, or coming across a 2 or 4-legged creature that will eat you, you're just not going to make it alone. So while I get and I understand, where people may be coming from when it comes to going after things alone, man, that it's not probably not the biggest thing that we could be thinking about. Oh, Gen X, man, we just got started, amigo. It's no big deal. Favorite car, man. I don't know what my favorite car is. I guess a classic American muscle car. Free. Free. So, be talking quite a bit over the course of the next few weeks and probably months, continuing to talk about building community. And because I'm in that process again, as getting settled down here in Northeast Georgia. But I want to kind of share some of my lessons learned, and hell yeah, Mr. Joshua's some of y'all's lessons learned as well. Because while you don't want to go and advertise, everything, you gotta put yourself out there a little bit and start meeting some people and starting to understand who can do what in your areas, and then who maybe, and there's obviously areas to stay away from. So, boy, I dig it. Johnny, surrounded by Kool-Aid drinkers. I feel you, brother. I feel you. So electricity. Electricity has been on my mind. And so many of us are connected. We're addicted to electricity, and life for so many people would simply cease to exist without some means of having, producing an electrical current, whether it's a generator, whether it's on the grid power, whether it's solar power, whatever it is. But one of the things I think that people get into their heads, and again, especially in a contested environment, one of the absolute worst dangers is going to be a couple things. And one, it's actually shining down on me right now. And I think it's something that folks don't consider, and it's white light, right? So it's one thing to maybe have some backup power for your house, your homestead, whatever it is. But it's another one to think that you're going to continue to live the life the way that you're living it now. Because if you're working off of a diesel or gas powered generator, one, that's not the way to go for long term. Efficient, yes. But obviously, both of those liquids go bad pretty quick. Um, propane is another option. Solar is a very expensive option, but again, what are you going to be using it for? You're going to tie it into, with a transfer switch to your house and just keep, running your lights on all night long. You're a fool to think if that's what you're going to do, because you're advertising who you are and where you are, and the fact that you have something. And again, contested environments, um, all you're doing is drawing epic attention to yourself. Do you feel what I'm saying? I'm sure that makes sense. I just don't know if we think about that enough. The type of presence that we give off. Talking about camo here not too long from now, and you know, something I talked to my troopers about quite a bit when we were out in the field, especially when we had on our old crappy camouflage uniform, and everybody was complaining about how much of a bag nasty camouflage pattern that it was and is. It is so nasty, I don't even want it to speak the three letters that correspond with it, but maybe you know which camo pattern I am referring to. And everybody would just be talking about how, ugly and nasty this thing is, whether you're in a desert environment, whether you're in a wooded or woodland environment, whether you're in a kind of work decently, maybe in some urban terrains if it's a lot of playing concrete and whatnot. But you know what I had to remind them of is that it is not that visual sense of your camouflage that's going to give you away. By the way, we're out in the field, and I'd say, what do you hear? And they turn around and they'd look, and they'd already grown accustomed to and being used to hearing the noises at the site. And of course, the military is deeply dependent on electricity, right, and power generation. And so there are, generators all over the place, and there are vehicles that are moving and operating. I'm like, man, somebody's gonna hear them things a lot sooner than they're gonna be able to identify it because of the camouflage pattern that you have on your back right now. Don't fail to put things into perspective. Another big thing that the military gets wrong is their dependence on the internet, right? I mean, to the point of, when I used to be working, in some of these major talking division level and above, echelons above division, and corps and above, um, the amount of internet that these guys want to be able to run their mission command systems is absolutely redonkulous. And so you can imagine the fingerprint that these systems give off, right? These satellite terminals give off. I mean, it's absolutely redonkulous. And even though you tell them every, after action review that comes up is like, man, you're using too much bandwidth, using too much bandwidth, using too much bandwidth, and nobody cares. Uh, Falls on deaf ears. So it's just crazy. When you think about electrical footprint, um, your noise footprint, and how much it can easily give your positions away, right? Let me look through some chats here, make sure we didn't miss anything absolutely awesome here. Super stoked and awesome to have everybody showing up, man. It's again, it's been far too long since I've gone live, and to be quite honest with y'all, and I'm assuming that's Kentucky prepper or whatever. Absolutely true. I mean, all you need is a storm to come through, and you're going to see who's got generator power. So, and not banking on generator power, you have to kind of think about outside the box. You can run some lighting off a 12-volt system. Even if it's just some redundant red lights in your house, or putting in a root cellar of some kind. And having some cold storage to be able to manage some of your foods, and lots of things to consider that don't necessarily take an arm and a leg to get into, like quite frankly solar power does. It just takes an arm and a leg to even get your foot in the door, to get the power that you want, and to be able to use it be enduringly, right? But we gotta think more and more outside the box. So I shared a short video on the Telegram channel not too long ago, and it was this guy. It was an apartment complex, and video footage of some hoodlums out in the hallway, very politely knocking on the door, like you don't know that they're a hoodlum at first, and basically talking like they're trying to do some kind of maintenance throughout the complex. And it kind of cuts and moves forward a few moments or a few minutes, don't know how long. And this dude and his thug ass partner start trying to beat down their door. And after quite a few knockdowns, it's obvious that the guy he had his door hardened pretty well, with the amount of deadbolts that you can. If you actually, I screenshot it to count how many deadbolts this guy had in it. It was pretty impressive. Of course, the guys in the interior ended up blasting a few rounds through the door, which scared the shit out of the criminals, and they took off like the pansies that they were. But thinking about how to harden your home, whether it's, you know, again on a day-to-day life, or when things turn sour and we have an enduring, potentially contested environment. You have to think about how to harden your dwelling place, because I'm sure many of you all have spouse and kids, family that's living with you right now, and depending on the scenario, you may have some family moving into your location, or you may be going to somebody else's location. So how are you hardened, right? The hard answer to harden is moving into an extremely isolated location. One of the homes that we looked at here was one of those. It was great. It was about a mile off of a dirt forest road, and it was about 5 miles away from the nearest uh, two-lane highway. And I was super stoked about this place because it was pretty awesome, and it was almost completely surrounded by national forest. So it was pretty awesome. That one fell through, and the new one that we're moving into is also in an isolated valley. Thomas Paine, I wish I could, brother, but you're gonna have to come to me now. I'm in Georgia. And yes, I have about 60 days until the beard, until the actual retirement. So I'm on my last couple months of terminal leave or vacation. So you got to think about how to harden. Thinking about your location and what you need to be hardened against. If you're in an inner city, the threats that you're going to have is going to be a lot more than somebody who is, off more into the country, even in a populated area like Georgia. If you look at the maps of like the nightfall and the white light that comes off where I'm at is pretty stinking dark, comparatively speaking. So not a whole lot of people in my county where I'm at. And so that just decreases the amount of folks that you have to be concerned about. But even still, you need to be concerned, again, because you have all of your livelihood, your stuff is there, your food is there, your family's there, your history may be there, because it could be tied back to family's farm that gets passed down, whatever it is. You need to be able to protect these places. So having a couple layers of security, working from the most likely avenues of approaches all the way to the interior of your home. And another place that I think this is something I want to spend some time on in the near future is stuff that, in my opinion, people get wrong about about firearms. Everybody loves a shotgun, and that's awesome. But when it comes to rifles or carbines, and I was kind of guilty of this, and I understand why I was guilty, and I acknowledge it. Uh, but people are really predisposed to an M4, M16 style carbine or rifle, right? Um, Parts are cheap; they're interchangeable. Ammo's cheap. Well, maybe not as cheap as it was 4 years ago, but I get it. But the problem with an M16 or M4 is that when you group and zero your weapon, most people, if on the military side, it's going to be a lot closer to that 25 meter, which gives you a really flat trajectory between about 150 meters out to about 375. It's fairly flat out that far. If you do a longer zero, it kind of brings in that flatness of your trajectory. But when you think about, just get out and start walking through your area, whether it's rural, especially, if you're in a rural environment. I could testify Pacific Northwest is same type of conditions as it relates to efficiency of your weapon platform as here. Why? Because you can't see beyond 15 to 30 meters, whether you're dealing with natural vegetation or micro terrain features. And so when you think about that and try to put that into perspective, now you really need to think what's a good brush gun and what is a really good platform to shoot 0 to 100 to 150 meters. Now, I can't, unless I get up in an area here like I was a couple days ago. I mean, absolutely no line of sight. Everybody loves long range shooting, and everybody loves to think about 300 meters and beyond. But you really got to think about this and think it through and think what is actually the best thing for me. And that's quite honest with you why I'm building a 300 blackout that I'm kind of stoked about. Chaz, I say a hatchet is the best. And I'll tell you, Kenneth, you are absolutely right, man. A 22 is amazing, and you can even pick one up that's suppressed. Absolutely dirt cheap, man. Absolutely dirt cheap, and so effective for so many things, especially small game. Sage, I am in Georgia permanently. Yes, sir. Let's see here. I'm gonna scroll up through some of these comments again. Yeah, man, we're super stoked as well, Payne, about the house. Patriots Arc, yes, sir. Union County, Georgia. Hoping in the next, I don't know, certainly within a month, we'll try to do some. I'll blast some stuff out, but try to do maybe just like a meetup in a ruck. There's a really good ORV trail system that's pretty close to me, so it'd be kind of convenient. What I really like about where we're at is it's kind of in this triangle between Atlanta, Nashville, and Charlotte. So there, a lot of folks hopefully can start getting some word out and having some folks come on out. I damn sure hope. Question about the SEER challenge for this year to get out there, but like I've had to tell Randall, my being able to come out is dictated off of and is challenged by our transition. But I'll tell you, on the SEER challenge this year, it's going to be an absolutely amazing, totally different event, man. We've been planning this thing since the AAR of last year. So, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, almost 11 months, it seems we've been planning this thing. And it's going to be really, really different. All right. Couple more tears. Oh, that's good stuff, Mr. Joshua. Good stuff. Louis Morris, I see you there with your 50-yard zero. That's good stuff. And I'll tell you, I'm going to end up tomorrow. I hope to go shooting. I'm a group in zero my weapon, and probably end up working on a basic marksmanship instruction video or PMI video. What, depending on if you're in the service, what you call it. But I think too many people don't talk about the basics, and so I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna group and zero it, and then I'll probably do a short follow on why I chose uh, the zeroing range that I did, and throwing some tools out there, just looking at some ballistic calculators with the ammunition and what you're trying to get after to figure out what the best zeroing range is for you, because they all have some pros and cons. Yeah, Matt, it does. The problem with an M4, if you shoot at a 25-meter target, maybe it's that dog silhouette, right? So if you don't know what that is, it's basically a target that's from here to here. You basically got to shoot at the dirt in front of the chest, because it's still on the verge of rising, so it's shooting pretty low. So you just got to get out and practice and know your system, if that makes sense. You got to know and understand when and how to make adjustments mechanically to your weapon based off of the distances that you're trying to engage in, which is something that I really loved about the KD course in the Marine Corps, because you had to make those mechanical adjustments to your iron sights in order to effectively engage, from 500 meters. But you also need to know when you cannot make those adjustments, because time is a factor. You need to know and understand what the trajectory of your rounds are, which is something that I appreciated about a pop-up range that the Army uses. And it's good to see them getting back to that, as opposed to qualifying on paper, which is ridiculous. So next up, I'm looking forward to expanding the conversation here. A little bit about probably something that history has shown us to be a death match against humanity in any sort of non-civilized environment. That's first aid, right? First aid is a killer, whether you're talking about treating basic wounds, treating fractures, treating infections, treating bacteria, right? And there's not a lot of training that goes on. You can find some wilderness survival training, that's out there. You can take some training from Red Cross, and there's a couple other larger national organizations that do some. You can find plenty of Stop the Bleed classes, and those are all well and good. And man, I would encourage anybody to go get after those. But if that's where we stop our training as it relates to first aid, I believe that we're absolutely deceiving ourselves. Absolutely deceiving ourselves. If you don't think about the amount of injuries, and look at just search and rescue operations, the amount of times that somebody is become stranded and isolated in a wilderness environment, more often than not, it's not because they couldn't navigate, although that's quite frequently, but quite a bit of times it's because somebody got hurt, right? They twisted an ankle, sprained a knee, broke, maybe it was a compound fracture that they were dealing with because they were dumb and they were climbing or something. You look at, again, any third world country, then their number one leading cause of death is going to be something as preventable as diarrhea, right? something that we absolutely take for granted here that we don't have to deal with. And we'll touch on another point of conversation here in this live chat talking about water, but you have to think about knowing how to treat for burns, right? How do you treat for burns? How do you treat for fractures? How do you how do you make a field expedient splint? Because it doesn't even have to be, a contested SHTF environment to think about this. Where I'm at, where my dad lives at in Texas, love my dad to death, but he went into a ditch and rolled his car like last year or whatever. He ended up actually getting pinned inside, and he was able to make a phone call, which was nice. But it took emergency responders 45 minutes to get on scene. So you can imagine how lucky and fortunate that he was that there was no bleeding that he was having to deal with, right? Nothing that was profuse or anything. Same thing is going to be true where me and Mrs. Stoker-Matic hold up shop here. It's only 15, 20 minutes to town, but making a phone call and expecting somebody to just Johnny on the spot show up, it's just not going to happen. And even, in some situations, that 15, 20 minutes to the hospital is probably 25 minutes to the hospital. That's 25 minutes to the hospital in ideal conditions, let alone if there's anything crazy going out on the roads, right? It's absolutely crazy. So you have to think about and be trained in these things. Again, fractures, burns, dealing with intestinal issues, dealing again, with any sort of infections, whether it's, on the outside of your skin because you failed to treat a wound properly, or, maybe it was a parasite or something that you ate or drank. And now you got to figure this out and how to get through it because you may not find help. And I think this is one area that people really take for granted. Some things you can put in your kit bag is knowledge, right? If you don't have some first aid books on your shelf, along with, to use a good famous crutch word, a plethora of books in your personal library, hardbound books, right? Maybe they're paperback, but things that you can actually put your hands on and actually read through them. And when you can and how you can, work through some practical steps for what is being taught in there. Again, here we're talking about first aid, but it could be, plumbing, electrical work, construction, doing some mechanical work. There's all kinds of things that we can do that too many people in this country are afraid of, right? People are afraid to work with electricity because they've never had any training or experience and no knowledge of how to do that. Same thing as first aid, right? Treating for shock. Years ago, quick story, and then we can try to maybe I'll again read back through some of these comments, and we can move on to the next one to get you guys' thoughts. But it was about 2016, and I just returned from Iraq and had 30 days leave, which was nice. So me, Mrs. Stoker-Matic, and our two youngest went on a road trip, and so we went from Fort Hood, Texas, all the way up to Pennsylvania. Camped a couple spots along the way, saw some friends and family, and then we started to make our trip back. So we're outside of Cincinnati, and we go to the McDonald's. And while we were in there, my daughter experiences a full body seizure, right? Man, at that point in time, once she's sitting across from me, I'm sitting with my son, and her and Mrs. Stoker are sitting across from us, and she just completely goes rigid as a board and starts experiencing this seizure, right? You can imagine my wife starts screaming bloody murder, right? And my son goes pale white uh, and goes into just shock. Like nobody can believe what's going on. Moved my wife out of the way pretty quick and got my daughter on the ground, held her, made sure that she wasn't chewing her tongue off or anything, and yelled at these dudes to call 911. Within a few minutes, the seizure initially stopped, and but again, she's out, she's done for. We get her loaded up, get her to the hospital. It happened to be probably the day or two before when we were doing a hike. This is guesswork in Pennsylvania. Uh, Mosquito got her, and California encephalitis of all things. It's either California or Japanese encephalitis. I think it was California encephalitis. She ended up in a coma for almost a week. Most of that was medically induced. But thankfully, if you're not aware, like the Cincinnati Children's Hospital is probably the number 2 in the nation. And so we're extremely fortunate to be there, to be in close proximity to something like that for an event like that, right? Um, but the point is, this shit happens. And it doesn't just happen to people that you don't know. It happens to you all, I'm sure, could account and talk story about tragic events. Maybe it was a drowning, right? Somebody who could swim and ended up drowning in a lake. Maybe it was a chainsaw accident, right? All kinds of life circumstances happen. And if you can't maintain a proper mindset in those moments and be able to respond and perform some immediate action, those events could turn out a lot worse than if you just discipline yourself prior to and got some training and experience. Maybe got together with some of your friends and your family and went through some things. Right? We got to be way more prepared. So I'm gonna scroll back through the comments. As real quick, I see Johnny's question asking, "Is she okay?" So, super long story short, doctors told us at Cincinnati Children's Hospital that with the amount of damage that was done to her neurologically, that statistics were telling the experts that there was probably only a 5 to 10% chance that she would regain 100% back to where she was, and that she would always have some sort of limiting factor to her, again, neurologically. So we got her into speech therapy and physical therapy afterwards, and it was a hell of a trip. And I'm thankful for a really good sergeant major that was I was working for at the time. Today, she just drove off. Well, she didn't drive, but Mama and her took a road trip to take her off to college because she graduated like top in her class. She was all straight A student and got into, quite frankly, basically an Ivy League school. So she's doing extremely well, and we are super blessed and stoked at the good stuff. So let me scroll back up here. And look at these comments. For all of those of you who are just now coming on board, it's great to have you. And if you're stepping out, it was amazing to have you here. And why can I not scroll up? There we go. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. Yinlin, hell yeah. I like Yinlin Dark, that's for sure. Tactical Homestead, I did not. Hopefully, right after this, I can get on and take a look at it. And brother, you never have to ask. You never have to ask if you can do a VR. I had to think about VR. What the fuck is that? And then I kind of put it two and two together. Let's see. Eastern Kentucky. Man, and Psalm Courier talking about toothaches and dental problems being life changing, and they absolutely can be, man. And I've certainly had. I didn't take good care of myself, my body at all. In my 20s, when you're young and you're dumb, and you think that you're bulletproof, you kind of do a lot of stupid things, and I really wrecked all of my body, but up to and including my mouth, and it took a long time to get some stuff squared away there. There are definitely avenues into your body for infections and all kinds of nasty stuff. It's always good to have some sort of first aid kit like you guys are talking about there with I see some between Thomas Paine, Swish, Hutch, and Patriots Art. Looks like Molly's got a Jace medical kit. Really good way to get some antibiotics, and veterinarians are a great place to get some antibiotics too. Um, just do your research on what you're getting, shelf life, and all that stuff, and what's applicable for what. And because every antibiotic is not the right answer for every infection, if that makes sense, right? Um, I have a trauma kit in my truck. I carry boo boo kits on, like I'm sure just like all you guys do, and in all my packs and my deuce gear. And wife's got a small. She didn't have a full trauma kit in her car. She's got a pretty good first aid kit. And truth is, like I don't carry first aid supplies. Like I do, I carry them for me and my family, but I really carry them. Same thing. Reason why I carry jumper cables, right? I don't carry jumper cables to jumpstart my own car, although they'll come in handy for that. But to be a good neighbor, right? If that makes sense, because odds are, I can think of every time I've been in the field, how many times that a first aid kit, an IFAC, trauma kit of any kind, has been used, and it's not often. But of course, you want to be prepared based off of the risks that you're taking and the type of events that you're participating in to be able to respond to things accordingly. But hopefully, a point being, hopefully, none of you guys ever have to take that kit out and put it to use. But I'm glad that you all have it. Ghost is talking about, if you are serious about planning for SHTF and you're not getting yourself trained about medical scenarios, you're wrong, and you're absolutely right, brother. Yeah, and Chaz, she refuses to eat at McDonald's and won't eat pancakes anymore. It's a shame. Almost caught back up here, fellas. Oh, Eagle Claw, man, my heart breaks for you guys. Canadian Tech Prep. Anytime I see fast, I'm thinking about my old unit. But good thoughts there. ICO talking about some herbal and just some natural medicines, and man, it's something to think about depending on your area and knowing those resources that are around you, and how they've been used to treat a whole kinds of different stuff. 4570 is a great brush gun, yes sir. Yeah, Mr. Joshua, we're moving on up. Let's see. So I think I'm about caught back up. I hope I didn't pass over anybody's questions. I didn't see any other questions there. That was a good question about how many tourniquets that folks carry, and I see some answers there, and it's good stuff. I have an admission to make, and I hope that you will forgive me, but I do take baby swigs when I'm on camera, so they're just baby swigs, as opposed to like full manly swigs. Good to see you guys' thoughts about how many tourniquets y'all carry, and as a general rule, I have one in my vehicles. I think I have 3 in my truck, just because some of them are training tourniquets. Uh, one in my wife's car, one in my gun range bag. I typically don't carry one when I'm just walking about the woods, but that's just me. So something else, I was actually talking to my father-in-law today, and he is deeply concerned. He is 100% positive, like I know a lot of folks are, that uh, the apocalypse, the end of the world, the SHTF moment is going to happen between now and the end of 2023. Right? Um, love him to death. And so, since I've been here, we've been talking a little bit more about what he's doing here at his place and things that he can do. And we're going to talk about 2 of them, looking for your thoughts as we talk about these 2 other critical areas. Uh, one of which is cooking, and I told him that I am convinced, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that I can take less than a half cubic feet, less than half a cubic foot of wood and cook conservatively 6 meals over the course of 2 days, or 9 meals over the course of 3 days. And it's going to be interesting. I'm going to put this to the test, hopefully over the course of the next few days. And when I'm done, I'll share some results using less than half a cubic foot of wood to cook minimum 6 meals, and using that same wood over the course of minimum 2 days. I think that's, if I'm right, which I know I'm right, but it's a matter of just how much more can I get from these resources. Open flame, by the way, open flame cooking. Think about the amount of resources that you can prolong over the course of time. Most campfires are going to use 2 to 3 times that much for one meal. So I think it's going to be a pretty awesome test. So, question for you: the other thing that we've been talking about is water, right? So, talking about water, and he's got a lot of things prepped here in the house, and I was talking to him late last week, maybe, right? And I was like, "What do you need more than food?" He's like, "I got all this food. I'm getting ready to go buy more food, and I gotta get some more food and some more ammo, right?" Is what his mindset was thinking. I was like, "Man, that's awesome." It's like, "But what do you need more than food?" And then eventually it clicked. I need water more often than I need, and more of than I need food at the end of the day, right? And food's a big thing, that people fool themselves on when it comes to survival, because they think that they're going to be able to eat game and fish and survive off of what's out there. But statistics will tell us that there is not enough game out there for people to sustain life. It's pretty atrocious in most areas throughout the United States. There's just not enough. So that's something to consider. But water is another big one, right? And so one of the first things that I started talking to him about was, getting and securing. Because his first thing was like, "Hey, I got a pond that's basically right down the street. I can go fill up my bucket of water and I can bring it back. And I built my contraption basically using a gravity, a do-it-yourself, gravity rock all the way down to charcoal filter." And I'm thinking, man, I just think about the amount of energy that you're wasting. And the beautiful thing about the southeast is you get some amazing thunderstorms, and with those thunderstorms comes water, and it's just right there for the pickings. And where we're at, he has absolutely no concerns about collecting that water. And so I worked through kind of designing him a system that he can use that's modular and expandable. Uh, Hopefully, he's going to start off with about a 275-gallon container. It's it's like, man, this thing's available right now down the street, Tractor Supply, food grade material. Let's go get it. Let's get this thing put up. But you think about that, 275 gallons. I was like, man, if it's just you and your wife in a, you know, in a in a condition where you're concerned about the tomorrows, right? And so now you're naturally conserving all of your resources, including water. 275 gallons. It's going to last you 200 days, easy 200 days, right? Easy 200 days. But if you're not thinking, I need to think about water and how to store it, how to utilize it for both, hygiene, for cooking, for taking care of your garden, again, because you got to be thinking about food. Um, Again, I think we're deceiving ourselves. And it's like right there, right? 3 days without water, right? Every survivalist out there will tell you the importance of water. But when it comes to basic home preparations as it relates to survival, I don't think there's near enough talk about the importance of planning around water. And I was like, talking to my father-in-law, I was like, look, man, you can get this pump. And if you want to have some luxuries of life, especially if all you're doing is gravity for your pressure, which is, if you got 275 gallons, it's gonna get you enough pressure for what you need. Man, just put in an inline filter that lasts 100,000 gallons. Like, come on, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? I was like, if you want to be even cooler than that, Get a little 12-volt pump, and you can pump that thing right to your sink if that's what you wanted to do. I mean, you can get crazy and fancy with this thing. I'm super stoked. The house that we're moving to is off of well water, and there's already 2 wells in the ground. And I'm still thinking rainwater, right? And I'm thinking because they didn't install a hand pump, that I'm gonna have to install a hand pump, right? Because when the power goes out, you want some stinking water. So looking forward to hearing and looking at your thoughts about water. And there's so many options out there, right? He's like, well, maybe I'll just start off with a 55-gallon drum. I was like, man, that's cool, and it's cheaper. It's not as cheap as getting a 275-gallon for the amount of space. Dollar for dollar, pound for pound. But it's all modular, and we can pipe this in. Using PVC and get some sediment washed out before you even hit your tanks and all the other bird shit that's on your roof. And we can get you up and running pretty quick. I mean, it's just so economical to be able to capture what's out there, especially like does not have access to a moving body of water. There's no creek here on the property, and he's not on well water, so he's got to. And if you look at the vast majority of Americans, that's exactly what they're at. And people will go to the store and buy 2 cases of bottled water in the summer, like that's going to do you anything. And sure, they make, if you're in an urban environment and you don't get a bladder that you can put in your bathtub and fill that thing up as soon as things start to go sideways and sour, that's probably the easiest way to be able to capture all that water and not lose it, right? I'm sure a lot of us grew up filling up bathtubs during times of emergency. But as we know, bathtubs eventually will drain out because those seals are not perfect. But you can buy bladders that install right in there. They're pretty awesome. Brent Dean, good to see you. Let me scroll back up here. Yes, sir. Tractor Supply got them. I'm going to get them too. Come on. Let me get back up here. What gender does your emoji hand identify as? You guys crack me up. I can't believe you got to pick what color you need either. Shane Free, good to see you, my man. Butane tanks, yep. Good stuff. So Baltimore, talking about being concerned about water purification, and it's good to be thinking about, and good thinking about something that you have to master and be prepared for, and have a plan A, plan B, and plan C, because shit's just gonna be crazy, right? Katie and Grunt, you're welcome, my man. Let's see. Kenneth, shotgun, Patriots are, can go weeks without eating. True. Not that you should want to, because you're going to pay for it, but you sure will and can. There's not enough game in my area. And Matt, man, you were right on. And you're right on that last sentence. There being enough for you too. LD, yeah, I appreciate you, man. Hopefully in about 2 more months. 2 more months. Jimmy having a well drilled in September. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hand pumps, my man. Especially when you're putting one in, it is it's too easy to just drop a little hand pump in at the same time. Constitutional carpenter, rain catchment should be top priority for any prepper. And it should be. And it's not sexy, right? The sexy things is self-defense and it's killing stuff and all that. But man, you got to have some water. Tom, talking about, your food procurement being an all-day chore. And, especially if you are going out to procure things, that is almost 100% true statement, right? And Tom, I'm gonna agree with you, and I think that's something that people don't consider, especially the calories that are required to go out and produce things. So, what can you do? Like where I'm at, again, I'm gonna be in a really good cubby hole that is extremely isolated, even from the rest of the lands that are around me. And I'm already thinking, what can I do to help keep game close by, right? Not too close to where it's might be eating food that I'm growing, although I'll protect that too. But I want to have access, and I want to keep things close by, so that I'm not, out bushwhacking and walking some trails, all day trying to hunt some stuff, right? So Shane Free's asking about 110 gallons. So 110 gallons. You can get on Google, right, Shane, and do some calculations based off of your roof. How many square feet does your roof have? And if you get a quarter inch of rain, this is how much water it's going to produce, and it will absolutely blow your mind how much rain is collected on a typical 2,000 square foot roof house. Every quarter inch. Somebody want to look that up, right? If you don't mind, just keep it to a quarter inch or 1 inch. Since we're talking about Oklahoma, right? Arkansas, maybe that you want to think about a quarter inch or half inch, but it is absolutely ridiculous. So 110 gallons, two 55-gallon drums. Just so you're aware, like if you go buy brand new ones, those are probably $120, $130 a pop. You buy two of them, now you're spending close to $250. You're almost to the point where if you can afford it, just get a 275 because they're super cheap. But 110 gallons should last you for a family of five. I'd say you need to plan on 5 gallons a day minimum. So you're looking at 20 days, right? For some planning purposes. Psalm, talking about elevating your water catchment to have as much pressure as you can. You bet. Tactical homestead water. Jimmy Fields talking about community. Absolutely. That was something that we got started talking about earlier in this conversation, about knowing your community and having one. And it's good to have friends that are, on the other side of town, on the other side of the county, and the county next to you. And you should have those. But you also need to think about that inner circle. And maybe it's not that these are the people that you're going to trust inherently, or that you should, but you should get to know them, know what makes them tick, know what they're good at, know what kind of values that they live, right? Let's see. Hand pump, yep. Tractor supply, looking to pull shot, yeah. Good shot line. Go. Eagle Claw's got two of the 275-gallon tanks, and says he's got them blocked up. So that's awesome. That's what I want to. Again, I cannot. Here we go. No, Brent, I am not in the bathroom, and hopefully, I just scroll down. So we'll see. I am in a basement right now. Yeah. So I'm curious. Small shed, fill like 12 barrels in a night or two. A good rain. Oh, Brent, man, you're the man. Brent, and if I remember, you were doing some drilling not too long ago, if I recall right from our conversation. Hopefully that's gone well. I cut a shit ton of wood today. I want to see if anybody's got this. Canadian, I don't know if anybody answered this for you. You should be able to find regular bleach and regular Clorox. You can use, can't remember off the top of my head. It's like 3 drops a gallon or whatever. It's a way, and it's good to have multiple ways, right? Brent, I don't mind dirty water either. It looks like some more of you guys are answering in there too, so that's good stuff. Oh, Kepart, man, brother, man, good to see you too. Definitely Patriot Sark, man. Keep shouting out. It's good stuff. Louis Morris talking about during the Depression again. Tying back into the amount of resources that's out there, and deer and turkey being hunted damn near to extinction, and it's about the same. So I'm curious, downspouts into one fills in one rain, right? Half an hour and it's overpouring. So again, it doesn't take a lot of rain to fill up some barrels. Tactical homestead, 10 by 15, so pretty small square roof, right? More water than you can shake a stick at. Every square foot. I see some answers in there. That's awesome. So hopefully that gives you all some stuff to think about. Let's see if I can scroll back down. Stop that. Yes, awesome. Brent, you got your well working. Let's see. All right, I think I'm caught up on the comments here. Definitely got to make sure you know what water's in the ground. Absolutely. Kephart. Yes, sir. Some good shout outs to some other content that's out there. Good stuff. Jay Hutch, should you have more than a gallon at heavy activity? You bet. Summertime, you bet. The more you have, the better you're going to be. Patriots Arc, asking about rainwater toxicity, and depending on where you're at, maybe. But again, if you think about what's in that water, like even some of the nasty crap, city rain that's out there, right? Dealing from pollutions and everything. You can treat that and you can filter all that crap out. And it can be purified. And so maybe you should be concerned, especially depending on what's going on, right? But you can get all that taken care of. Where I'm at, I'm not overly concerned about pollutants in the rain. Baltimore says, "Keep the beard, brother." I certainly plan on it, and we'll let it get a little bit, and then we'll start making decisions. You grow what you have when it comes to beards, right? Like you can't grow the beard that you want. You can only grow the beard that you got, and it's crazy You know, that one little patch there that's that's left. Oh, definitely. No, patriarch. I feel you, my man. I feel you. Let's see here. Super easy. Yep. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Man, it's been an outstanding hour with you guys. I appreciate you. Just a baby swig. And again, that's the best thing about having a beer is you can have some for later. uh, I think like I'm not cutting like I trim the neck for the wife, right? And well for me, after about a month, but I'm not trimming nothing. I want to let it all grow out. So we'll see. We will see. Man, it's been a great conversation talking about expectations versus reality, power grid stuff, a little bit of self defense, going after things alone or and afraid, or with some kind of community, some first aid, some water stuff. I think it's been an absolutely great conversation. Outstanding conversation, man. You guys are awesome. I think I think that was about everything that I had was thinking about. I will give you a little preview. Oh, absolutely, my Brent. I think once we get settled in, it's gonna be a whole lot easier. It's all. I can't wait for day 168, man. This feels really good. Anthony, can I hunt on the new land? You bet your ass. Right next to the house, adjoining my house, because we only picked up a couple acres, and I say picking up like we close next month, right? But I'm super stoked, right? So a couple acres and a couple outbuildings and some separate avenues of approach. And one of those outbuildings is a 700 square foot workshop with an attached 2-car garage and its own access point. And I mean, it's not going to be I mean, I'll do some work out of there, but I'm really looking forward to being able to teach out of there because if you're looking out of that garage door, I got a very isolated. So the national forest over here is kind of weird, in how it's broken up, and where this property is, there's a half mile by 1 mile section of national forest that's isolated from the rest of it, and 600 meters. Uh, you can walk and get into the rest of the Cherokee. I'd say the rest into another large portion of the Cherokee National Forest that is also basically untouched. But yeah, it's gonna be good stuff. Well, bicycle. Once you master it, you ain't got to worry about cutting your thumb off. Canadian tech prep. Great question. In a SHTF scenario, will people be able to roam the streets? And I think if crime is generally down, then I think the answer will be yes. Again, look at any war over the course of the past, 120 years, and these are major wars and conflicts. Life is still happening in the streets. And so I think that there will be some degree of freedom of maneuver, if you will. And certainly in some places it'll be tough, but the government can't stop cannot enact martial law across the entire United States. It is 100% impossible to do, just based off of numbers of people versus number of citizens, right? Can't do it. Continuity government, yes. Let's see. Shit, I can't remember what I was thinking about. Oh, so what I was thinking about, yeah, it is a checkerboard, man. In the Cherokee National Forest, man, it's like, 500 acres here, 8,000 acres there, and it might be joined or it may not be. So it's kind of awesome. Um, so, we the people definitely outnumber them, my man. Definitely outnumber them. Just are people determined, right? If you're not determined, and if you're weak, talking not you, but the people, if they don't have something to rally for and be for, and to be truly against something, then it doesn't take a lot of people to govern strictly the masses. And history has shown us that as well, right? And not just the United States, but think about places like South Africa in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. So, shit. Let me open something up here. Ah, definitely a lot of Kool-Aid drinkers out there, and we have to be careful of that ourselves, though, right? We have to be careful of what Kool-Aid that we may or may not be drinking, and to question it and to filter it, and not be afraid to drink from a couple different taps to truly understand what we're consuming and taking care of. Matt, great flavor. I'm a window licker. Oh, Brent, there's my Kool-Aid, my man. Oh, in there. Last food for thought, maybe, and pay attention to you guys 100% in the chat, and then we can try to wrap it up. So it's spoiler alert for all 75 of you guys. So I really don't give a shit, and I don't mind. Sunday's video, and this is a food for thought for you. And again, started off this live chat talking about the cop outs that people take. And one of those cop outs deals directly with gear, right? Nobody wants to tell somebody what to use. Well, just use the best thing for you because I don't want to offend anybody. And I appreciate the sentiment, right? As much as anybody does. And I appreciate to a certain degree where folks are coming from. But it's such a cop out, and it gets to the point where it's like everybody's afraid to say the things that you need to basically have. And then it comes into the cliche of mission drives the gear. And I was thinking about this phrase, mission drives the gear. And like a lot of you guys out there, like my experience is nothing overly special. I'm just a dude. But I have been, in and out of the outdoors, camping, hiking, ranching, and of course my time in the military. I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I started thinking about this. Mission drives the gear. Man, I've been on more field training exercises, like a lot of you guys have, than you shake a stick at. It's like every time one comes up, some schmuckatelli says, "Hey, Top, can I get a packing list?" Well, yes, here you go. You want to know what it says? The exact same thing that was on the packing list every other time that we've gone to the field. Every time. Packing lists are the same, right? And if I take a standard military packing list and I compare that with a backpacker's packing list, you know what we're going to find? It's all the exact same crap. And if I take that and I bounce it off of what maybe somebody like Red Cross says to have in a packing list, you know what it's going to have? The exact same crap. The only one who may differentiate from these things is a compadre a couple states north of me now who likes to only talk about 10 items. Sure, somebody's going to cry over that one when they watch this later. Right. So I started thinking, does mission drive the gear? And yes, you know, if you're on a patrol, maybe you're an EPW team, maybe you're the commo guy, maybe you're the land nav guy, whatever it is. Like you may have an additional item or two beyond the scope of what everybody has. Yes, if you're conducting to go set up an LPOP, you may have some different things, but 98% of your gear is going to be the same. So really where I'm going to try to get at on Sunday is not that mission drives the gear, but that your gear drives the mission. Short video, short conversation, and it's short. Members, I know that Riggs had a really bad day, and I had a bad day when I was out traveling, and so this film, this video piece was actually done there in Wyoming, and I was pretty distracted thinking about Riggs, who's just not doing well at all. Of course, he's better now, so that's awesome, but it's gonna be good stuff. So let me look back through some comments here. And Matt, looking back up though, Matt, oh, let me look back up because you were replying. Kevin, man, great to see you, my brother. North Kakalaki. You bet I did. So 40%, I assume that's Baltimore. See, you're 210 pounds. Why is 110 pounds? Bag size. Struggling. I don't know if there was earlier conversation. I don't see it. But I'll tell you. So my short term job plan while I'm here is actually going off and working with teaching wilderness survival with this outfit a little bit further east of me, and so I'll be out in the woods for 8 weeks at a time, teaching teenagers and young adults stuff. My pack for that will weigh probably no more than 20 pounds for the week, not counting food and water, right? 35 pounds is the military standard, as far as, doing your ruck marches, which most guys don't even do anymore. I think I saw down below something about 80 pounds, which Matt, you probably said, 30 pounds good because you're talking 80 pounds. And I think you called that out, that it's, that can be crazy talk. Like, people don't get, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going to do some ruck marches here, with whoever can come out from this tri-state area. I want people to come in and I want to talk story and chew some fat and get folks out with their kit. And because what people don't realize, is the amount of energy that it takes to move 2-3 miles an hour. Doesn't have to be fast. with a full kit on plus 35 pounds, plus your weapon, plus your ammo, right? It takes a lot of energy, and you can do it, but you can't sustain that for days and weeks at a time. And I'm gonna have to follow back up on this. Earlier video talking about the gear that we wear and the approach that we have is wrong, because most people are out there thinking that they're going to fight like a conventional military force, modern Minuteman, latest craze. Um, but you're a fool. And most of these people that are out there talking like this have never had to wear full kit ever in their life. And even if they have, they probably only now wear it for 20 minutes while they're on the range. They get off and they throw their kit away. And then, as it turns out, again, thinking, does mission drive the gear, or does your gear drive the mission, right? Where does your kit stay 99% of the time? For most of these folks, it's under their mom's bed in the basement, right? It's not even available. So it's just dumb thinking, in my opinion. But yeah, so man, if you just figured 30, 35 pounds with food and water, man, you're in a great spot. And if that's too much for you now because out of shape a little bit, that's okay. Back that down to 20 pounds. You'd be surprised at the amount of kit that you can get to 20 pounds without even thinking ultra light. I'm going out for 8 days at a time. How many pair of pants am I going to take? I'm going to be wearing one, and I'm going to have one. How many pair of socks am I going to take? I'm going to be wearing a pair, and I'll probably take 3. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe just 2. I'll probably take 3. Right? How many shirts? I'm going to be wearing one, and I'm going to have a spare. That's it. That's it. Again, I'm not thinking more than 2, 1 week. I'm thinking, what do I need to get through a week? You don't need all the crap that everybody loves to tell you that you need, right? Especially now, summertime. Like, come on. You don't need hardly anything. The dude abides. Yes, sir, Brent. And most people don't even know that's a 90s movie, right? That's a 90s movie. That's just badass. H harness or Y harness, Johnny asks. In my opinion, I can base this off of just my experience. Y harness. No reason. It's just what I've used, and it's what I have on my deuce gear right now. Eventually, maybe I'll upgrade some of my stuff, but I don't think I'll ever. I don't care. But I will say, this is something that one of the members and I were talking about. When you're in a muggy environment, load-bearing equipment like that, whether you're using an H harness or Y harness, can be much more efficiently and much easier to sustain in hot, muggy environments and tropical environments, right? So good stuff. Puddle jump. No. And I haven't taken practice exam in a couple days. Maybe I can do that again and see where I'm at. Man, you guys have blown up the comments. This is awesome. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Man, you guys are stoked. But yeah, so I am going to set up a link between my father-in-law and our house. It's about 12 miles as the crow flies. And I should be able to get a GMRS link in, I think, between those two. So we'll see. Psalm, I appreciate that as well. And hipster skippers. Skip American, man. You right. The Mad Max is a fantasy. Mark, good to have you from Arizona, my man. Yeah, what's funny, Easy's talking about how awesome Alice gear is. I had a comment, I just laughed. It said that my Alice gear looked like something from Bass Pro or something like that. Like, what the fuck you talking about? Let's see. Man, I'm just reading through you guys' comments. So awesome to see you guys chatting with each other and everything, and just reading your comments in general. I have not heard about the 50-mile wonder warrior. I assume you meant wounded warriors ruck locally, or one maybe it is wonder warriors. So Canadians talking about the UN. I mean, yeah, and I feel maybe Canadians concerned about that, and there's certainly a lot of Americans who are probably concerned about the UN. But I think if we look at UN operations, if you take out the United States, the UN is basically nothing. You can go eat a dick. Um, I feel you. Let's see, I think I'm close. Yeah, 60 pounds heavy, man. No, this is not a Mad Max channel. And I know that shit sells. And it would probably blow up, if I preached the Mad Max apocalypse. But the truth of the matter is, as far as I can tell, that what it does not do is build community. It doesn't build intentional uh, conversations and relationships, and it does not build authenticity in the dialogue. Right? I'm not concerned about being a fucking influencer. I don't care about making money off of YouTube. And it was something I was talking to Brent a while back, not too long ago, maybe a month, I think, about maybe doing a video of a glimpse at being a creator. Like, what does my side of the screen look like when I'm in YouTube Studio, right? Let's walk back through the last couple years of Stokermatic so that you can see all the things that I see when I'm in studio, whether you want to make your own video or your own content, or you just want to know, what does a 56,000 subscriber channel look like? Like, how much money am I not making? You call it transparency, call it helping a neighbor. I don't care. But it's probably something I'll do. Probably something I'll do. Acer, how much should each and every single person be trained? Great question, and I'm sure there's some answers in there. My 2 cents is I think everyday emergencies probably pretty important to at least, if you can't walk through something yourself, to know where to find the information to walk through it, right? And even us, like, we can't walk knowledgeably through each and every single predicament, right? Or each and every single, piece of equipment. If we had to try to repair stuff, like we're just not that smart. Um, but if I know where to get the information, now I have something, right? So I think everybody should be able to, taking it back to earlier conversation with like first aid, everybody should be able to start the breathing, right? To do some basic stop the bleeding, to protect the wound, and to treat for shock. If you can do those four things to a decent degree, you're going to be able to handle like 90% of every first aid trauma type scenario that you're going to find yourself in, right? If I know all my SOPs and procedures, I know where my checklists are at, you're going to be on your way. But that's just my 2 cents. Let's see. Carrying what you don't need, absolutely. So many variables. Jay is looking for some local training. And Hutch, I'm not sure where you're at. I'm not sure where you're at in this country or this world, but hopefully you can find something that's close. And if you're out, in the country, where I'm at, there's not a lot of resources. You're in Ohio, right on. Um, Depending on where you're at in Ohio, you're probably going to have some like Red Cross resources that are available within a relatively close proximity. And you're looking for some folks that may be doing some nonprofit training. Like one of the guys, the organization I was helping out in Washington, Frontline Preparedness, all they did one class a month, free of charge, to the and open to the public, and probably once a quarter, if not once every 5 months, was a stop the bleed course, and it wasn't certified, but you can find them out there for your certifications. But thinking about tactics changing, and I'll tell you, I went down a rabbit hole a couple days. I don't watch a lot of YouTube content, um, but I did go down a rabbit hole, and I started watching some content as it relates to one of my old professions, which is CQB. And oh my God, the tactics that people are using absolutely blows my mind. It baffles my mind how people are holding their firearms and moving through a building. And I get that tactics change, but we would have kicked these dudes out of CQB school in the 90s for handling weapons the way that they're teaching people to handle weapons. So I was half tempted yesterday to download some of these videos and do a CQB instructor reacts to dumb CQB shit or something. It's absolutely ridiculous. Uh, yeah, there's some SAR stuff that's out there, and even so, you may not want to do it, but Red Cross does online training and certifications, so for the group I'm going to get ready to go work for, like I got to be up to date on my certifications for first aid and for CPR. And there are no local classes where I'm at. And I said, look, are you okay with me doing this online, given my past experience and in-person training on these events? And they were more than welcome to accept that risk. So local fire departments is another good one. Our fire stations here, The only one that are manned 24/7 is in town, 20 minutes away. Everything else is volunteer. But there's another really good resource. I'm glad you brought that up. Old Muscle Shoals, JJ Johnson, my man. Man, it is good to see your mug in here. That's good stuff. And I don't know how many times I have said that Muscle Shoals is down on the coast. Louis. Yeah. You and I have been talking lately, man. You probably shouldn't be CQB and SHTF, but now you're thinking about recapture, right, Johnny? Like you left your house and you come back and perimeter wasn't properly secured and maybe somebody made entry and now you have to basically recapture what is or was yours, right? Canadian, I feel you. I knew some really good dudes, and there's a lot of groups in the Pacific Northwest that do some awesome training. Some of it's a little sketchy, and some of it is outrageously priced. But there's some good ways to meet people. But I mean, you don't know, and people are talking about, oh, just go join the militia. Well, if you're talking about state militias, that's a great thing to get out there and do. If you're talking about mom and pop militia, odds are they're probably operating outside the scope of the law. If that matters to you, and it doesn't matter to a lot of people. But if people are sketch, then you have to be worried about sketch shit going on and people that you may bringing into your circle and into your family circle that may not have the honor and the integrity and the values that you have and that you want to be associated with, right? So all kinds of shit that's out there. So I was going to go live tomorrow, especially now that we're getting down to 60, 70 people. It's an hour and 42 minutes. Nobody in their freaking mind is going to watch this replayed and make it this far. Tomorrow's a big day. I was going to go live, but I figured, you know what? I was going to go live tomorrow. But I was like, you know what? There's not a chance in hell that anybody's going to show up. So, I think it's going to get, not that tomorrow's going to be a crazy day, but obviously you have shit going on here in Georgia and you got debates that are happening. And, again, my father-in-law is absolutely convinced. Johnny, I appreciate that, man. Water boy. That the end of the world is going to happen between now and the end of 2023, and God love him, but I mean, if I was betting on a time that for another epic period of civil unrest, right, or a period of civil unrest, I would have to be thinking towards election time. So not this year, but later. And certainly I think, no matter, and this is the shit scenario life that we're in, if it came down to, and everybody has their own opinions on who it's going to come down to, the news would love to tell you that it's going to come down to Biden and Trump. If it comes down to those two people again, no matter who wins, somebody's going to freaking lose, right? Somebody's going to freaking lose their minds. If it comes down to any other two candidates, then maybe people won't lose their minds. But if it comes down to those two candidates again, no matter who loses, that losing side is going to lose their freaking minds, right? And I think that's mindful. We should be mindful of that awareness, especially once it gets closer. If it is those two folks, like the writing is on the wall. Either there's going to be a repeat of the summer of love across this nation in all the big cities, or there's going to be um, another 6th January, right? Style event. It may be bigger, who knows? Um, but that would be the moment that I would be looking forward to right now, reading the tea leaves. Like I just don't see anything between now and then. But what's crazy about the news, right? What's absolutely ridiculous? It's it's almost unfucking forgivable. Pardon my language. But look at the freaking epic failure in Hawaii on Maui, right? Like people are news. If you went to CNN's website, if you went to Fox News's website, like they both don't give two shits, right? At near over 100 dead confirmed, 850 fucking missing. Man, it's been long enough. Those 850, they are not missing. They have just not been identified yet. 1,000 people lost in a fire. And news media outlets, all the mainstream media, both sides, left and right, don't give two shits. Just like, where's the fucking manifesto, right? Just like what happened in Las Vegas. You give it enough time, and people just forget and they stop asking. Why did 13 die in Afghanistan, right? I mean, people have stopped talking about the failure of our withdrawal in Afghanistan. And when I say people start talking, specifically, I'm talking about the people that you voted for, people that I voted for. They stop giving a shit. They stop pushing the bear, right? Stop pushing back because the election cycle's over. 1,000 people fucking died. If it was a mass murder, let's say it was a nightclub in Florida, right? I think maybe this happened once. I think there was a nightclub in Florida that was shot up. And the only thing on the news for weeks was that shooting in Florida. The audacity that we have as a nation to not continue to talk about 1,000 people who are no longer with us. Just days after the event, we just stopped talking about it as a nation. And I'm not saying that you know a mass shooting or whatever should not be talked about. But does that make sense? Like, fuck, man, we're losing our minds. We are losing our minds. Brent Dean, man, I appreciate that. That thought. And Kevin, you're damn straight, man. And they're not going to be able to identify him, right? You're right, Jay Hutch. Never let that crisis go to waste. You got to wag the dog, right? You got to wag the dog. Just looking back through you guys' content. Comments here. Oath taker, man, you never know. And Kevin, man, you're right? Um, September through November, Gary, you're absolutely right, man. It's gonna be a shit show. So, thing of it is, right? Are we reading the tea leaves, or are we gonna treat it like every other? Like Kevin, you can testify, right? And anybody who's ever lived in the Southeast can testify. You have hurricanes that come up every freaking year, and it's not every year that your location gets hit, right? Lived in Jacksonville for North Carolina for years, and because of where it's at on the curve, like it naturally draws in a lot of hurricanes. But you may go a year without a major hurricane. With maybe all you'll get is a tropical storm or a Cat 2, right? Cat 2s, man, you're still out barbecuing and drinking beer. Right? Cat 3, you're going out to the ocean and get some surfing in, right? You're having fun. Cat 4, man, just make sure that you get to the class 6 to restock on everything because you know it's going to be shut down for a few days. But every year, year after year, decade after decade, every time a hurricane hits the Southeast, people lose their mind and they go to the store, right? That's when they start stockpiling. Man, it's too fucking late. Some of these tea leaves are pretty readable to see for the near future. And I think that we are sadly mistaken if we're not taking that into account. Salty dog, yes, you damn straight. He sure is. Yeah, I mean, Cat 4 is whatever. Cat 5 can be dangerous, but yeah, you want to know what we did in Cat 5? We hooked up ponchos and we jumped off the second story. Man, we were fucking idiots. Yeah, hurricanes, man. Block parties, maybe. You had community, right? After that storm was gone, you had and you have community, even if it's just your block that comes out and starts grilling or barbecuing, and you get to know people. Like we shouldn't have to wait for those types of events. So again, where I'm moving, it's off of a road that cuts into the Cherokee National Forest. So there's this. It's not a neighborhood, right? It's a country road, but there's some larger properties and homes that are stretched up in this one little valley. And that's how it is. If you've never been to the Southeast, if you have roads that are driving down through the mountains and the mountain passes, not mountain passes, but these ridge lines, you're going to have little strings of communities up through these valleys. Well, one of the things that I have to do, that I'm going to do once we get into this place next month, is go talk to people. I'm going to talk to my neighbor. I already know one of them's name is Dan, right? Property owners used him to make some repairs on the house while they've been gone. I'm going to go to my other neighbor. I'm going to go knock on some fucking doors. I'm not afraid to have an encounter that may be awkward, right? I'm not going to spread the good news. And even if I was, I'll spread the good news of Stoker. And if anything else comes up, I mean, that is what it is. But, I want to go say hi. I'm down here in the street. I just moved in. Normally, it's the other way around. Should be the people who've been there that are introducing themselves to the new folks, but whatever. And I'm gonna go see what people are all about. May get turned away, may get looked at like I'm a fucking fool, but I may have a couple good conversations. And if I don't put myself out there to have these conversations, I'm never going to know. And it could be that 80% of them I don't want to know, right? But those 20% might be some really good freaking people. Might be good to have as some neighbors. Might be good to continue cultivating community with them. And even if it's only 10%, I would never know if I didn't just extend a hand, extend that olive branch, right? New guy to old guy, and say, hey, let's start talking. Absolutely. Waving hands and shaking hands, right? Fucking jello mold. Kevin, you right, man. You gotta trust somebody. Baltimore, appreciate you, man. All right. Oh, JJ, man, I'm sure I will. Uh, interesting thing about North Georgia, in Union County, the population growth has been transplants, right? And so people are transplanting from every. There's a lot of transplants from Florida that I've met. And there's a lot from the Northeast and some other states. Good thing is it's not Blue Ridge, right? Blue Ridge isn't that far away, but that's where the hippies live. Um, but where we're at is pretty good to go. Kevin Caraway, that's the other Kevin, Gen X, Kevin Caraway. See, I mean, I know Gen X. I know you said that earlier about saying your name. Now I know for sure. I didn't know your name was Kevin, man. I should just start saying people's name. Hey, Bob. Fucking great to see you. James, good to see you too. Everybody's gonna be like, "How did you know my name?" And when all you see is my screen name, Union County. Yeah. For a while, I kept getting it wrong, Brent, because I had in my head it was Macon County, but it's not Macon County. It's Union County. Pigeon Forge, man. Yeah, that's not far away, brother. Um, be good. Not too far away. Hit me up if things work out. Headspace, I feel you. Sometimes you got to talk about things sideways, right? You got to take a little dog leg because even if folks may want to talk about it, they may not want to talk about it with people unless they have a really established relationship, right? Does that make sense? But if you can just talk about in general preparedness, natural, if you just start talking natural disaster preparedness, people will talk about that stuff all the time. But it's when you start throwing out phrases like SHTF, that's when people start, bottling up a little bit. Saw him. So, no. So Brent lives in close to the Big D in Texas, and now I'm 12, 13 hours away from him. I was hoping to be able to catch up with him after I left my dad, who lives in Central Texas, but it just didn't work out. Never meaning no harm. I need to get my guitar out and play it one of these days. All right, going fishing. Yeah, people talk about natural disasters all day long, especially the natural disasters that happen in your area. If you're in tornado country, if you talk about tornadoes, people start talking because they've experienced it. And then once you talk a little bit more, it's easy to add on a then what, right? Well, what happens if the power doesn't come back on? The then what? The then what? The then what? But if you make those conversations relatable to somebody, if you're in the Southeast, man, if you talk about, again, those hurricanes, if you're on the coast, in Tennessee, they've had an issue with flooding in the past, right? You can talk about flooding, and then the then what? The then what? The then what? If you're in areas where there's a lot of fires, you talk about fires, and then what? And then what? And then what? Get people's heads spinning, and they see that your head spinning, and you can see that their head spinning, and then the magic happens. My God, it's been 2 years. Two hours. Whew. 2 hours and 2 minutes, my crazy fellas. I appreciate you. I think we've had a good conversation, and I know I have. I appreciate everybody's comments. I mean, I don't have to be, but I probably should be. Yeah, it's gonna be great adapting here. Man, salty dog, like it's not work, man. This is community right here because if you go to work, you get something back. Like whoever's watched this live is the only people who's gonna fucking watch it. Ain't no full mullet coming here. Ain't no full mullet coming here. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my hair yet, though. You gotta figure this out. Yeah, man. JJ, I had we, I say my family had a cabin in Ruidoso, New Mexico, and it was right by a lake. And yeah, I went hiking, short hike up to this fire break into this tower yesterday with my daughter. Before she took off, we spent the day together, and we're out up on this beautiful hilltop that's cleared, 360 degrees, long range mountain views, absolutely beautiful. Probably saw half a dozen lakes, and I was like, you know what? And she's like, what? It's like every lake that you see is all man made. She's like, no way. I was like, yep, way. They're all man made. And so this lake that my family had up in Lincoln County, New Mexico, close to Ritos, and it's kind of close to a lake, and that was one of the concerns. Was that dam giving way? And infrastructure. JJ, you can testify to this. How many bridges and dams are beyond the point of when they should have been inspected last, right? I remember discussing this when I lived in Alabama between 2003 and 2010. The amount of dams and dam inspectors in Alabama, it paled, right? They did not have enough people to get out and inspect, let alone to do the work for the repairs that these dams needed. And dams give away, man. That's something else. Oh, did I see a thundercock in here? Get out of here. Ha. French, my man, it is good to see you. Good to see your name. Friends, that's Thundercock. I appreciate that headspace. Man, they're all man-made up here, man. Yes, they are. Nice. Oh no, some they're great. They just don't get inspected. Oh man, don't worry about it. It's I'm super stoked to have you come in. I don't know how much longer I can take this here. I'm gonna have to take a break and step outside and smoke me a stogie or something. Let Riggs take a leak or whatever. But I appreciate you jumping on, and this has been fantastic. Again, yeah, absolutely. Watch it from the beginning. Fuck it. And then when you get to now, it'll be like an aha moment, like, whoa, this is crazy, right? I've already made it to here. This is where I started. It's like I've seen it. It's deja vu. I ain't going to 1 a.m. You crazy, Kevin. Which Kevin am I talking to? Yeah, no, I feel you. Oh, I did, Kevin. And thank you so much, man. Those things were amazing. I probably should have smoked them a little bit faster. They started to dry out because I don't have a humidor. It's something else on my bucket list, my short list bucket list to have. But they were absolutely fantastic. If you all have a favorite stogie, what is it, and or favorite tiers? I gotta hit up my cousin who lives just south of me, just south of Dahlonega. Uh, Went to their house not last weekend, but the weekend before. Man, they had this rum that was not spiced at all. It was freaking good, freaking good. Yeah, hard to go wrong with a classic. People used to ask me, Gary, like, man, what's your favorite beer? And I'm like, and they still ask me, I'm like, fucking cold and free. Like, I don't care. Um, Cold and free beer is the best beer in the world. And if it's not free, if it's cold, it's probably going to go down okay. If you're watering grass, you need something like the champagne of beer, right? I'm not afraid to drink the champagne of beer. I'm not afraid to do it, especially if I'm cutting the grass, because you could drink like 30 of those in a day and you're fine. It's like drinking water, but it's beer, so it just mentally it does something for you. But porters, I prefer a good porter. Hey, you know what, Kenny? You're not going to go wrong with that at all. Um, Thermal optics, man. You know, I've talked about this in the past, and I don't have them in here. They're out in the trailer. A set of those, you know, crappy $260 or whatever NVD binoculars, right? That you see all over Amazon or whatever. And I told these guys I'd take it. And I do have, if I can find it, I have a thermal camera on one of my cat phones that I have. I've used it a couple times in some videos a couple years ago. Cold weather camping, you know, just to help measure temperature. I think I used it for my debris shelter as well. I just got to find it. You know, thermals are great for hunting in an open field. NVDs are great for working and being able to see out if you have, you know, some field of view. But man, they are freaking overrated. Freaking overrated. I tell you, the other video I wanted to do a react to was Grand Thumb. It put out a video. I guess it was maybe 6 months ago. I just watched it. I just came across it. His was one of the CQB videos that really pissed me off. But he had a video that he did with some buddies. And great channel, great dude, whatever. But they were talking about drones, right? And drone footage on the SIPRNet in 2016 and 2015, right? The shit that was going on and how they were being utilized in Iraq and Syria. But even they, I only watched a little bit of this video on the Thumb Man, but even they annotated, like, if you're flying your drone above, you know, 25 meters, it's not going to be effective for dropping this payload. If you've never been around a drone, even a small commercial drone that can drop a small payload, 400 meters, you can hear the damn thing. 400 meters with outfitted, let's just say it didn't have no payload, but it had FLIR, right? And I really want to get me a FLIR drone. That'd be kind of badass for a lot of reasons. And you can go find footage of it being used in search and rescue organizations and law enforcement operations and being really effective, right? It's like, oh my God, these things are awesome. And then you realize that there's no vegetation and there's no micro terrain features between point of observation and the point that's being observed. If you have those two things mapped out, both night vision devices and thermals work great. But if you got vegetation and if you have micro terrain features, you defeat FLIR and NVDs and thermals and night vision and IR. You defeat all of that. Analog, digital, doesn't matter. Defeat that crap all day long. Oh, was that buffering? Whatever. Oh, I'm sure they have Canadian Tech Prep and J Hutch Tech P, man. I don't know what that is. Of course, we were breaking up. Oh yeah, no man, FLIRs are all kinds of fun. Good stuff. Just reading through y'all's comments. I guess the NSA got mad. I was talking about stuff. Just reading back up through y'all's conversations. He's on the rocks, huh? Yeah, so you know, we've done some live chats. They do more than I do and that I can participate in, but appreciate that. J Hutch, you cray cray, man. You're trying to get me demonetized. Because I got something to say about that. Well, shit, fellas. Should probably hang it up. Should probably call it a wrap. It's starting to get late here, and I got to get up and go shooting tomorrow. Man, I appreciate you guys so much. This conversation, the community, the dialogue, the talking story. That's where the shit's at right there. That's where the shit's at. So I'm gonna go find some videos here from here that some of y'all were chit-chatting about. Oh, Kenny, Matt, I appreciate you. And I'm looking forward to some emails. And before I let you all go, Ken Orphy. Oh my God, you gotta get me fucking demonetized. Oh, you guys are great. It's been fantastic, man. I appreciate all you guys. And before Jay Hutch leaves off, another amazing, funny joke, question. They'll get me demonetized. I'm gonna let you go. We'll see you guys, man. I appreciate all you guys. You stay stoked.